Hi friends, this is my second lecture on ecology and environment. So in my first lecture, we had discussed about the fundamental concepts of ecology. I had talked about food chains. I had also talked about food webs. So today, in a continuation of that discussion, I shall begin with ecological pyramids. Now, these ecological pyramids are actually graphical representations of the structure and function of the ecosystem. So, you already know that ecological pyramids are of three fundamental types. These include pyramids of number, pyramids of biomass, and pyramids of energy. Now, as far as the pyramids of number are concerned, these represent the number of organisms at each trophic level. Okay, so these represent the number of organisms at each trophic level. So obviously, these pyramids of number, they can be upright or they can be inverted. Now, generally in a grassland ecosystem, you can expect upright pyramids of numbers, because at the base of the pyramid, the number of organisms will be more, and as you rise up the pyramid, the number of organisms goes on decreasing. The grasses are more in number. The number of herbivores will be less than the number of grasses, and if you go up still higher, the number of carnivores are less than the number of herbivores. So obviously, in a grassland ecosystem, the pyramids of number will be upright. But if you look into an ecosystem in which we can begin with a single tree, so if we begin with that single tree, on that single tree there are dependent a number of birds, and on each bird there can be several insects which are dependent on those birds. So what we find that in this case, the base of the pyramid consists of a single tree. So on that tree there are several dependent birds, so number of birds is much more than that single tree, and on each of those birds there are several insects. So again we find that in this case, as we move up the pyramid becomes inverted. Now let us move on to the pyramids of biomass. Now you already know the definition of biomass, in which we can say that it is the what you can say the weight of the living organisms. It simply, in simple terms, it means that the weight of the living organisms. Now in pyramids of biomass, we represent the biomass of the organisms in each trophic level. And obviously, as with the pyramids of number, they can also be upright or they can also be inverted. Lastly, we shall talk about the pyramids of energy. Now remember, pyramids of energy, they shall always be upright, because as energy flows from one trophic level to the next, the amount of energy or the energy content, it keeps on decreasing. So it is expected that pyramids of energy shall always be upright. So that's all about the pyramids of energy, which or rather the ecological pyramids. Now remember, ecological pyramids are also called as the Eltonian pyramids. They are also known as the Eltonian pyramids. Now after our discussion on ecological pyramids, the next topic which we can take up is energy flow through the ecosystem. Now energy in terms of physics can be defined as the capacity to do work. Now in an ecosystem, no ecosystem can run or function without energy. So energy has to flow continuously through an ecosystem for the survival and sustenance and continuance of that ecosystem. Now generally we can say that for every ecosystem, the sun is the principal source of energy. And as energy flows through the ecosystem through the various trophic levels, these energy is utilized by various organisms. Now you must remember, the energy flow through the ecosystem obeys two very fundamental laws of thermodynamics. Now what is thermodynamics? Thermodynamics is the science of heat and energy flow. It deals with the study of heat and energy flow. So talking about the first law of thermodynamics, which simply states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can only be transformed from one form to another. So this is one law which energy flow through the ecosystem will definitely obey. And the second law which we have to keep in mind while studying energy flow is the second law, which suggests that whenever energy flows or whenever energy is transformed from one form to another, there is always some amount of energy which will be lost as unavailable heat. So I am repeating the second law. Whenever energy is transformed from one form to another, some amount of energy will always be lost as unavailable heat. Now keeping these two laws in mind, if we talk about the energy flow through an ecosystem, so generally the sun's energy primarily falls on the producers, the green plants. Now they utilize this energy for carrying out their photosynthesis, and a part of their energy will be utilized for their maintenance. So these green plants are there fed upon by the herbivores. The herbivores will be utilizing the part of their energy for their own maintenance. Now when the herbivores are fed upon by the carnivores will do the same. So what we find ultimately, that as energy flows through the ecosystem, the amount of energy content available at each successive trophic level, it goes on decreasing. Now actually it obeys the 10% law. It obeys the 10% law, which we also refer to as the Q10. Now which says that whatever is the energy available at one trophic level, at the successive trophic level, only 10% of the energy will be available. So if I say that the producers get 1000 units of energy, from the producers, the herbivores, they will be getting 10% of 1000, that may be around 100 units. The herbivores will be fed upon by the carnivores, so the carnivores will be getting another 10% of it, that is around 10 units. So whatever energy is available at one trophic level, to the next trophic level, only 10% of the energy will be available. So remember, the energy flow through an ecosystem obeys certain laws. First thing, the sun is the principal source of energy. Energy flow through the ecosystem will obey the first and second law of thermodynamics. Third, energy flow through the ecosystem is always unidirectional. There is no way by which we can reverse the direction of energy flow. And lastly, whenever energy flows to the ecosystem, it obeys the 10% law. That is, whatever energy is available at one trophic level, at the successive trophic level, only 10% of it will be available. Okay, with that, we come to the end of the discussion of two more topics, that is ecological pyramids and energy flow through the ecosystem. Thank you, and please continue following the lectures.